This sentence is false.
Welcome to Clever Orbits. Today we're talking about Discovery episode, an OBOL for CHARON, which may be a hopelessly confused pronunciation of those words. I don't know. I'm going to ask my friend the linguist.
An opal for Algernon.
No, that's not what it's called.
An obelisk for Karen.
Karen sounds right.
I don't know what an OBOL is. Let's look that up. What's an OBOL? That's something we should know. We should be experts.
We should have already looked this up.
It's a coin. It's a form of Greek currency. It's a coin that's placed in the mouth of a dead ... I'm clicking. What's it going to be? A dead ... person.
God bless you, Richard. What did you think it could have been?
I don't know.
A dead child? A dead monkey?
Doctor? Criminal?
Yeah, that's what you were hoping. But you can't always get what you want. All right, so this episode was great. I loved it, actually. I thought it was solid. It was lovely. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9 out of 10 straight up. Character work, the liberation of Saru, the speaking to and connecting with the sphere, the universal translator mishap, all of it. It was excellent. Plus, in the same episode, they give us kind of a stupid reason why holograms aren't used. And
the reason is that they don't like it?
Yeah, they don't work very well,
go.
Apparently. That's the thing. They don't work very well on the Enterprise. And then there's all this cutesy little talk about the Enterprise and stuff. And then, the mycelial network thing. Here's why the spore drive doesn't get used, because it's just dramatically assaulting a level of reality and a series of living beings. Well, that's not good. We don't want that. We're Starfleet. We're not going to do that anymore. I think it goes a little beyond that, though. I think the cool special effects and the weird spatial distortions we see in the next episode, I think that's what it's going to take for them to stop using it. Because, if it were just an alien species, it's wrong, but maybe Section 31 would still use it,
Maybe they do.
Maybe they do, actually. That's an interesting thought. So, yeah, anyway,
How does Sloan get in and out of Cisco's room so easy?
Maybe. Or maybe it's just a transporter. Maybe it's a transporter.
Oh, yeah, they do have those.
They have those, too. So, anyway, initial thoughts, my friend.
I like this. I thought it was cool. I wrote down, the woman has a nice hamburger. I think this might be the first time we've seen someone eating a hamburger on Star Trek. And it looked pretty good. It looked like there was some ketchup going on there, too.
Yeah, it was like habanero sauce. I really thought, so she's number one. She's his first officer. I thought
she's
she
Major
was
Barrett.
so hot. I thought she was so hot until she ordered a hamburger.
Because he wanted to be a vegan?
That's what real hot people do.
Laurel, the actress who plays Laurel, is a vegan.
Well, the character of Laurel is most certainly not a vegan, right?
I think it's unlikely that there are vegan Klingons.
I think it would be very interesting. So
I think they would find the idea repugnant.
Of course you do. Just like that scene in Generations, human females are so repulsive. So, some people argue that this episode has too much happening at once, and I couldn't quite get a philosophical theme out of this one. The characters were so well drawn, and the character work was so well done. It's another one of those where I'm okay if they're setting the stage for more deep philosophical grasping later.
There was a lot going on. It's true. Like, when I think about this episode, what comes to mind is a series of interesting but sort of unrelated stuff. Like, I think about that hamburger. I'm also hungry right now, which is why I'm thinking about the hamburger. But I also think about the universal translator virus. I think about Saru begging to be killed, which was pretty intense. And I think about that thing on Tilly's arm. Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean, this could have been a couple episodes. I feel like it could have, and it ended up okay. Oh, and then there's the giant alien sphere that's 100,000 years old. That was freaking cool.
Yeah, that's just kind of like in the background because there's so much other stuff going on.
I mean, in the original series, that would have been the whole plot. There's a giant sphere alien. That would have been that would have been the whole plot. That would have been the whole plot.
Probably just would have blown it up.
Yes.
But no, it's good because they got a lot of information out of it, and I'm sure we're going to hear about that information in the future.
We're going to hear about that information for weeks to come.
That's right.
So there were a couple moments of compassion. We'll start with those. When Saru's ganglia are just about to fall off, Burnham's like tears and sadness. Like, I legit believed and felt her empathy for him and the desire for him not to die. And I also thought it was really cool that empathy is like part of the core of his species. Like, that's another of his superpowers. Just like he can tell when something's about to die, maybe that sense is just an extension of his ability to feel and experience the emotional states of other beings.
Or maybe emotion is death.
No. So that no. Doesn't make any
the little death.
Sense. That still doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Fear is the little death that brings about total obliteration.
No, fear is clearly the mind killer.
Oh, it's also that, yeah.
Yeah. So then I thought, go ahead.
Well, there's two things with Saru. There's his begging to be killed, and then there's him losing his fear ganglia, I guess, and now experiencing no fear. You can sort of see that transformation. You can even hear it in his voice. It's great acting. But so it reminds me of this idea of Saru without fear and how he's lived his whole life in fear and now he doesn't have it. It reminds me of this story I heard. Someone told me this story, so it must be true. It was about themselves. This guy that had a depression and anxiety and whatever, and he says his doctor prescribed him ketamine for this. And he reported that for about a month on ketamine, he felt no fear, no anxiety. It was incredible. He felt like he was living the life he had always wanted to live. He felt like he had been under a cloud before, and he could do, the whole universe was open to him. And then the ketamine stopped working after a month. And he went back to being depressed and anxious. But now he remembered what he was missing, and it made it that much worse. So I hope poor Saru continues to not have his fear ganglia. They don't grow back.
Like flowers for Algernon.
It's exactly like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like an OBOL for CHARON.
I also loved when he left the bridge. I legit believed that he was going to die. Like, they really did.
Me too.
That
I was starting to reach for my phone to look up if he was leaving the show.
Yeah, they did that extremely well. They made me. I was a believer. I was terrified.
I guess an advantage of the show being so chaotic in its first season is that they can very credibly make it seem like a character is going to die. It's totally believable that one of the actors would just leave halfway through.
Yeah, I suppose that is the case. It's funny. So to finish off the moments of compassion, I like this through line between Stamets and Tilly, where Stamets, you could see, and this was beautiful, the compassion that he had for her before he had to trepanate her. and like, you know, singing the David Bowie song, and then when he holds her after she escapes from that thing, that cocoon thing, like that, those were really touching. You know, it's just sad that there was there a problem with the video when you were watching the Giuseppe, the like creature speaking?
No.
Really?
I don't remember anything.
There was a problem with my CBS All Access where it skipped like 2 or 3 seconds. And
all 3 times you watched?
All 3 times that I watched, yes. It's really dispiriting.
That's incredible.
But to finish the moments of compassion off, this whole idea of compassion for all beings, and Saru empathizing with the 100,000-year-old sphere being, and wanting its story to be told after it dies, like, and mirroring his relationship with his logs and his culture. And I mean, I thought that was cool. There isn't anything really interesting, salient, or coherent that I got from all of it, but like it was interesting. Yeah. What did you think of the YouTube malfunction? Tell me about that.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. Well, it made me think, like, what if all these guys are, like, what if, like, none of them is actually speaking English? What if they're all speaking, like, Italian and Portuguese and Mandarin? It's just the universal translator the entire time. What if all of our favorite Star Trek people, what if none of them actually speak English? That's kind of cool. It's also a little
cool.
disturbing.
That is a little disturbing. Feels like we've been lied to, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Unreliable narrator.
Yeah, and it was also, I mean, there's always this question about how a universal translator could possibly work. Like, how could you point a machine at an alien sphere, which is emitting, like, information in the ultraviolet spectrum, and decode that as a language automatically? Like, we can barely do that by hand as humans. But that's okay. There's some talk in some of the episodes about how the universal translator works. And there's this idea that there are universal semantic concepts that underlie every language. And, okay, I'll go with it.
Does that
I thought it looked cool when they were decrypting the alien language. It looked on the screen. I thought that was pretty cool.
Does the UT and the way that it's portrayed and function, does that actually accord with what you know of actual languages?
Well, they were all speaking real languages. And, you know, there's nothing like a universal translator, so I can't comment on if it's realistic in any way at all.
Okay. Yeah. The whole idea of a universal translator itself is kind of...
You know, it's a sci-fi concept. It's cool. I also, it's surprising that we haven't had this idea before of, like, a virus actually infecting the translation system.
Well, you know, the writers...
We haven't actually had hardly any translation difficulties at all in Star Trek. It's like the writers in Star Trek, underlyingly, they're just assuming that everyone speaks English. And sometimes they throw in a line about the universal translator, but you can tell that usually the way they think about it is everyone speaks English.
Yep.
Like, there's this scene from Enterprise that I think about when I think about this, where it's the scene where they first get some kind of radio transmission from the Romulans. And I guess Hoshi Sato is like, they call themselves the Romulans, and T'Pol is like, they're called Romulans. Like,
yeah,
that's the first time that word was said in English. There is no correct pronunciation yet. This is an alien word. It has no English pronunciation. And T'Pol is like, it's pronounced Romulan. Yeah, okay. It shows that the writers are just thinking about everything's happening in English. And it's nice that they're not. There's a little... Also, language virus idea is cool. I've never heard of that. And it would be a good way to disrupt someone.
Yeah, you're like me. In high school, anytime they told us about the component parts of an atom, or like
molecular bonds or whatever, I was immediately cannibalizing each of those ideas for, like, how could this be weaponized? Like,
that's good. That's a good attitude.
In high school. In high school. I still remember my high school chemistry presentation. It was about nerve gas. It was about VX, CHARON, and the other one. There's like another one. But what I did was, I have to tell this story. I threw different types of chocolate bars to each person in the room. Kit Kats, Snickers, Twix. And then when everybody had their stuff, I'd be like, all right, so who got Twix? And everybody raised their hand, and I'd be like, you get to die of sarin gas poisoning, and here's what happens to your body. And
yeah.
It's really terrifying. And then for the last part of the presentation, one of these gases is like odorless, colorless, and you really can't tell when it's in the room.
Good.
So I took these empty jars, and I walked down the aisles of the students' like desks, and I would open the jar and I would put it on one of the students' desks, and I would say, and this was odorless and colorless.
Yeah.
Just to leave them thinking that maybe I was releasing nerve gas into the room.
Were you?
No.
Oh.
That would have been as deadly for me as it was for everyone else in the room. That would have been unwise.
If you had done that, would you have admitted that on a public podcast?
No, but Richard, I didn't kill anyone.
Okay, I'm taking notes here.
I didn't kill anyone. Okay.
You didn't kill anyone, but a number of people have died since that day.
No!
A definite
You're wrong.
number of people.
An indefinite number of people. Okay, so maybe we should get back to the episode.
Okay. On the topic of death. We should talk more about Saru's death. Saru's pseudo-death, his almost death.
Well, it was kind of disappointing. I mean, like, it might have...
He didn't die?
He didn't die. I was all ready for him to die. I cried as if he had already died with Burnham.
Well, his old self died.
Yeah, his old self died. Okay.
Now he's reborn. I feel like the makers of the show have an issue with biting off more than they can chew emotionally. Like, what can we handle as like audiences that are still kind of new with these characters, and the writers are still kind of new with these characters? Like affairs, okay. That's the kind of something we can emotionally handle with these characters. Things like danger, okay. Things like deciding whether to keep the child that was born of rape. Oh my God, that's like off the charts for emotional complexity. And then like, oh my God, your friend is asking you to kill him and put him out of his misery. Like, I can't honestly relate to this. I think very few people have ever had to face this situation.
Wait, but Richard, weren't you there with me last week? Man, how could you forget so quickly? You actually had to kill an earlier version of me last Tuesday.
Yeah, but there's a new version of you coming right around the corner.
Oh, okay. So it's not very emotionally complex. Yeah, not very emotionally complex.
I mean, look, when you do the same thing every week, no matter how emotionally complex it was the first time, it's not so hard the subsequent weeks.
Well, I mean, they did this once with, and I really liked the portrayal of it in the episode Ethics on Next Gen, where Riker Worf asks Riker to kill him, and Riker's just like, ugh, that's disgusting. How dare you ask me?
That was a whole episode where they got to think about it sort of contemplatively, and it was with characters we sort of knew, and the authors
for Burnham,
knew the
she's got like
too.
10 seconds. And he's
she's like,
do it. And she's like, I can't do it. And he's like, no, do it. And then she's like, okay.
Like this enormously ethically, emotionally complex, wrenching event. This is the kind of thing that would like traumatize someone. This would define someone's entire life going through this kind of thing. It's like we get to see Michael Burnham like look upset about it for a few minutes.
Well, no, poor fucking Michael Burnham, she's already had so many life-defining, traumatizing
I guess for her,
experiences.
this is par for the course.
I mean, she had the one with Spock. Well, this would totally align with Law of Attraction, right? She's never fully resolved the shame and guilt of having fucked up her brother, so or the shame of and guilt of having survived her parents. She's got survivor's guilt, and so of course she attracts a circumstance. She attracts a circumstance where she gets even more survivor's guilt, increased by an order of magnitude, and centered around her former captain who she loves and adores. Like, this is textbook Law of Attraction and resisted emotional incompletion in the body. You know what she needs? She needs a good emotional freedom technique practitioner.
She needs to sign up for the Landmark Forum.
She needs to sign up for the Landmark Forum first, and then she needs to coach with me. Then she'll be fine. Then her life will be glorious bunnies, roses, and rainbows. At least
until the ketamine runs out.
Till the ketamine. Okay, well we're gonna let that one go. So yeah, they have their first Star Trek style staff meeting in Discovery in this episode. I appreciated that. And then the Saurian. The Saurian
room that I think we've seen before.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the ready room. That's Pike's ready room, which was both huge. It's the biggest ready room we've ever seen. Maybe George O's was big, but it was also built in an incredibly short period of time. Right? In the first episode of season 2, we get him still in Lorca's room, and then the next episode we get him in this room. It's like, wait, do you have a core of engineers on Discovery who could just, or maybe I don't know, maybe it's modular, and maybe they just had this other module hanging out, or maybe a lot more time is passing than we think, and like
what have they
hanging out in
casualties?
Space Stack or something. What?
Have they had many casualties?
I don't think they have. I don't think anybody's died.
You know, if some of the crew is gone, you can knock out some of those walls and make a big room.
No, but this is on deck
Here's
1.
what you should do. You should send people down on away teams who live next to each other in rooms next to each other. That way, when they both die, you can knock down the wall and you get a big room. You get a big ready room.
This is terrible, Richard.
This is not the actions of an inspiring leader captain.
I just like that, even though this was kind of contrived, I like that this episode was the detour that healed Burnham's desire for intimacy with her brother. I mean, I like that we got to that point. I mean, actually, no, the episode does kind of feel messed up in that at the beginning of the episode, she out of nowhere makes a decision that she doesn't want intimacy with him anymore. And then at the end of the episode, she's unmade that decision. It's like, I mean, I'm glad she wants to be. Well, I don't know. Maybe it does logically follow from the previous episode. Maybe she felt even more guilt and shame after she told her mother about maybe sexually abusing Spock. I mean,
whoa, where did that come from?
I'm not sure what she did to Spock, but whatever it was mean, and it was uncalled for.
You got to consider, what are the writers of this show going to make it? It's going to be something that's really dialing up the emotional fucked upness to 11.
Maybe what she forced Spock to do was to help assist one of his best friends in suicide.
while having sex with her.
While having sex with her. And
making her pregnant. And then forcing him to raise the child.
And forcing him to raise the child with genetically enhanced evil Nazi alien beings.
I think that seems pretty plausible.
That seems really plausible, given these writers. Yeah. So, what do we think? I mean, we've talked about all of this. I just want to mention a little bit of Jet Reno for a second. I like the uninsultable comment. I like that she leaves her jacket open. It's kind of like she's a doesn't give a fuck kind of thing. And And you know, when it comes down to it,
we should have more
go
of her.
ahead.
Why is she not in every episode? It's because they can't pay to have her in every
like
episode.
her enough.
I think she should be in every. She should be on the bridge. She's funny.
She really is. I mean, she's like quirky and all of this. So there was two things I saw about the characters that I really like. One is that this same scientific curiosity that was kind of incarnated in Spock in the original series, it gets distributed through Tilly, Stamets, Burnham, and Saru. Like this show really wears its affection for science on its own shoulders, or on its sleeves, excuse me. And the other character thing that I really liked was that Saru, he deals with shame and fear, and he moves through both in this episode, and he shares something that, I mean, you know, so for me, Star Trek as a narrative formula has boiled down to this combination of moments of really deep compassion intermixed. This is like the intermix formula of Star Trek narratives, to quote Star Trek The Motion Picture, the intermix formula, right? It's moments of compassion plus philosophical quandaries or interesting sensitivities or difficulties, and they kind of play with that, with this Joss Sepp character and Stamets saying, all right, well, I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I am sensitive to this. I don't want to mess up the environment, so to speak, using this new drive.
Yeah, all this environmentalism talk. It's like
which was
turned into, well, where did that come from?
It was not done well. It was very weakly drawn. It was
new. Like, I've never heard about the
we never hear about it in the 24th century, in the 23rd century, in any other part of Star Trek for any reason. I mean,
there was that episode with the cosmic speed limit.
Yeah, but that's got to do with warp
which
drive.
They just forgot about.
Yeah, that's not about. Yeah. Well, they redesigned in Voyager. They talk about they redesigned the warp nacelles to get around it.
Oh yeah.
So, because you've got to increase warp speed to 9.975. I mean, in order to make things serious, it's very important.
Yeah. On the topic of science, I had to, in that part where Stamets and Janet Reno were tripping, and they're talking about how about the harmonics on each other's auras. I had to think back to that line. What if my religion is science?
As if that gives us an answer.
I guess.
I mean, actually, mystical experiences caused by exposure to fungi and other things, they are, totally reasonable. Totally, like for someone to have that experience and then make some mystical, spiritual, religious conclusion. You remember the Good Friday experiment, don't you? Have you read about this?
Maybe not that particular one.
Well, so it's from Rational Mysticism, which is a really good book, and they talk about how they gave these this bunch of people psilocybin on Good Friday, and those who were Christians said they had a really profound mystical experience, and those who didn't, who weren't, still had a really powerful experience, but they didn't give it religious or spiritual significance. And like the whole point was that you could really on demand generate with a relatively large sample size a significant spiritual-ish experience. So that's a thing. I don't actually have that much more about this thing other than I really wish we had more time. Like Richard, I think you'd appreciate this. I wish we had scenes, long, drawn-out scenes of us just staring at the sphere.
Yeah. Like at the motion picture?
Yes, seriously. I want that.
Scenes of people like looking at the screen with their eyes getting slowly wider, and the music's going, and then you go from one face to another face.
I really, you know what? It's my Richard. You're gonna love this. It's my anniversary with Hyrule.
Yeah.
So she said we could watch whatever I wanted.
Okay, it's gonna be Star Trek: The Motion Picture as
probably
as depicted on Pornhub.
No, not the Pornhub version. That one. That was.
Can you explain to our listeners what we mean by the Pornhub version of Star Trek: The Motion Picture?
We're just going to leave that for now. We're going to explain that some other day. Star Trek: The Motion Picture is up on Pornhub, basically. Incidentally. You can find it. If you can't find it on any other, site, it's there. And there's this comment from this one guy who's like, man, it took a lot to get into this one, but once I got there, I was gone. Or some shit like that. It was really funny. So back to the episode again. Back to the episode finally. The last couple of things I had, I mean, the space sphere being was really classic Trek, and it was a decent bottle show, and, you know, the UT malfunction is interesting. I thought it was ironic that they make up a story that the attempt to communicate was a virus. Like, it was a story that they made up, and they fell into a linguistic trap when, in fact, the UT malfunctioning was because the thing was trying to communicate. Like they made up a certain story that was just not what was going on. And yet, you know, it's reasonable because, their meaning-making machinery didn't have any real resources for interpreting this other than, it's a threat. And that's
I kind of like the idea that this thing is so advanced that we don't even recognize its language as a language. It looks like a virus.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Imagine speaking a language where every sentence of the language is actually a virus that you infect people with. I mean, thoughts are kind of like viruses, right? Memes, bits of language are kind of, they spread like viruses. Also, the way that certain cells in our bodies actually communicate with each other is they whip up a little virus that has some information in it and send it around. So it's not implausible.
It's actually really clever.
Yeah, I thought it was cool.
I think the beating heart core that I would conclude this with is Saru saying, every story that I heard created a space inside of me to love more, and I joined Starfleet to help those in need. That's good. That I appreciate and approve of. And, you know, it's a matter of a certain level of organizing the ingredients. And yeah, you're right. That idea was sufficiently sci-fi and interesting to have this episode be decent and generally good. Now, what would have made it great is if they had actually had an interaction with the sphere or something.
But they got that information. I'm sure we're going to hear about that information.
I hope we do. And they managed to get Spock back. We were Spock teased again. And I know that the next episode, we're going to get Spock teased again. And we're not going to see him for a long time.
But when we do, when we get that flashback of whatever Michael Burnham did to him, wow.
We finally see Spock. Yeah. So we've got a beating heart core. We've got moments of compassion. We've got some decent moments. We've got some interesting things. And then I'm really excited about the next one, Section 31. And, man, we've got less than 24 hours before that one comes out. That's right. Going to be really sweet. Yeah. Well, man, any closing thoughts or any broad stroke observations that turn this from something that's decent and good into something that's great?
No.
Oh, no.
I gave it something like an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to bring mine back down to 8.5. I mean, it was fun, but there needs to be more meat on these bones. Whatever vegan tofu meat they need, you know.
That was a nice hamburger that number one was eating.
Yeah, this is the part where we talk about how Riker says early on in The Next Generation that we don't hunt animals for food anymore because we're evolved. The future is vegan, Richard. Get on board.
Hey, that hamburger was made out of synthesized meat that came out of a replicator.
Oh, my God. So it's even worse for
her. No, they could probably insert all kinds of nutrients in there.
Actually, it was probably made of tofu.
It's made out of molecules that are reassembled to be identical to meat.
Yeah. So we're going to leave on this. Did you ever hear from me and Steve the idea of the meat slaves?
No, intriguing.
So our whole idea would be to grow beings like they do at KFC that are genetically modified purely for the purposes of producing meat. And they would no longer be conscious beings. So we'd not be harming them. We'd just have but then there's a problem with genetically modifying things, and then and then there's the real creepiness factor of like Morpheus
I wouldn't
saying,
try to. You could if you have, it's like a tree, but it's made out of meat and it grows fast, and you just cut off like a limb of the tree and it's like a chicken wing or something, and it just grows. And you could sell these things, and people could put them in their potted plants and in their house, like in their kitchen. Imagine having fresh chicken wings every day that you just pluck off the meat tree that's growing in your kitchen.
Yeah. Sure.
Isn't that a beautiful image?
No. Well, I mean, if it's vegan and it's fried chicken, I'm fine with it. Actually, I'm all behind it. Actually, if it's that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, all right. This has been an OBOL for CHARON. We put that penny in that dead person's mouth, and we told him to smoke it.